Are we going live or what's going on here? Mr. Machine? Mr. Machine? Good evening, human beings. Good evening, drones, and welcome to the Beehive. We're here at Beehive Productions, and we are presenting Apocalypse Humpday. We are in the zombie saga. And this is night. Oh, what the heck night is this? What the heck night is this? What the heck night are we on here? I believe this is night 11 we are on with this zombie apocalypse. No, we're on night 7 with the zombie apocalypse. Shows you who's paying attention, right? Right. So, anyways, thanks for the huge turnout last night at Tunes for Tuesday. Had no idea Neil Diamond had such a following, and I got to cash in on that a little bit. So, yeah, I'm always happy with that. Anyhow, yeah, we had a lot of people show up last night for Tunes for Tuesday. We did Neil Diamond. Sang a few songs from there, even did an encore, which I was never planning on doing. And yeah, it turned out to be a good time. This stream for Apocalypse Humpday has also been growing, and it's been really cool. I got a message from somebody saying that they caught up on YouTube and now they've been tuning in here. So very cool. So if you are here tonight, thank you for coming back and returning. This book was I wrote this in 2012 and I finished it in 2013, I believe, and I published it on Halloween of 2013. A lot of things are going on in my own life. I had just gotten a divorce that year, and yeah, and I was looking at a lot of things. I was homeless for a little bit, and yeah, I had a lot of stuff going on. Anyhow, I was still writing regardless, and I believe I started this story on an old used laptop that a friend of mine that I worked with, Jason, who does come here in the evenings to watch and listen. Jason gave me his old laptop, and that's what I finished the story on. And yeah, so after reading this book, yes, authors do read their own books. I read this book several times actually, and you know, when I was out of the divorce for a while and I was on some stable ground and I was feeling a little more secure, I realized that I was writing about my marriage and its eventual ending. So I don't know if you'll pick that up as we go along here in the book and you guys follow along. I do appreciate you guys coming in every week to listen. I also appreciate you heading over to YouTube or even just on this page and checking in as well. You showing up after the live stream is just as important to me as you showing up during the live stream. It's kind of nice to see you guys out there because then I know I'm not talking to myself, although I'm not afraid to do that either. A large chunk of my local friends are playing pool tonight, so they always catch it afterwards. So that's their excuse. But yeah, one of my goals I want to try to do here is I'm up to 27 subscribers now on my YouTube channel, and I would like that to get bigger. How do I go about doing that? Asking you guys. If you haven't done it yet, please head over to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Bradley Bodeker. There's also links to it here on this page that you can click on, and it'll take you to the page. All I'm asking for is a subscribe. If you guys subscribe to it, I can start monetizing and get advertisement and stuff like that, to get my stuff advertised, to get other advertisement, and then I get a little cash flow in with this thing that I'm doing here, which I don't know what to put a label on, but yeah, so if you guys could do that for me, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. If you could ask your friends and family to do the same thing as well, would love that. Would help me grow on my YouTube channel. Also, I've got over 1,000 friends on Facebook, and trying to get that many people to like this page is a little difficult. I've had people message me and say, "Do you send me this Beehive Productions bullshit? What the hell is this?" And I just tell them, "Oh, this is my page that all my creative endeavors come out on here." And yeah, so even just showing up and liking the page or following the page, whatever you do, really helps me out. I can do a lot more with this channel and with YouTube, with the more subscribers I go. I hate it. It's a popularity contest, and I thought I gave that up in high school, middle school, whatever. Actually, I never tried to be popular in school, but yeah. So I'm begging for your likes, I'm begging for your shares, and all that on my page and on my YouTube channel. If you could do that, I would be ever so grateful. Anyhow, let's get into the story. The story comes from my book, Zechariah 14:12, Humanity's Last Stand. That story, the book, came from a short story I wrote in Midnight Snacks, which was a compilation of some short stories. That short story was called The Last Stronghold, and actually, a chapter in this book is the short story itself. So I'll let you guys know when we get there where this whole entire story came from. So speaking of the story, when we last left the folks of Fair Lakes, Minnesota, we met Mr. Hal Iverson, who is a newsman for the radio station in Fair Lakes called, the call letters are KFMT. It's a play on the radio station that I actually worked at in Fairmont, KFMC. And yes, the building is also in the middle of a sheep pasture as well. And Hal Iverson is based on a real person that worked at that radio station. He's retired now. And yeah, he got a big spot. He's one of the stars of the survival group. Anyhow, yes, so we got to meet Hal. Hal was desperate. He not only was the station pretty much disseminated by zombies, some looters came in as well and tried looting the place. They got killed by zombies, so he's pretty much ready to check out of the radio station, and we will catch up with him in the next chapter. But for this chapter, we're joining back with Len and his mother-in-law Grace and the kids, Lee and Catherine. And they are still on a search for Chris, Len's wife. And she evacuated the hospital and was heading towards the National Guard Armory, which is where Len and our group are headed to. And we are going to join them here in Chapter 5. So let's jump into that, shall we? All right. Let me wet my whistle here. I think I'm coming down with something because, yeah, back of my throat's being weird. Chapter 5. Catherine had been crying in her grandmother's chest since they left Clara and Harvey behind. Lee was only silent as she hid her face from the carnage around her. Len's heart sank as he pulled up to the National Guard Armory. A large hole was blown in the eastern wall of the building, and the fences all around the back end where the tanks and heavy guns were being stored were also gone. There were so many bodies lying about. Len didn't know how many there were. "Grace," Len called to her in the back. Grace kissed her granddaughter's forehead and leaned forward. "Do you think there are any survivors?" she asked. He scanned the building with his eyes as they drove the perimeter slowly. The building was dark and quiet. "It doesn't look good. What do you think we should do? Where should we go?" He thought for a moment and then put the Jeep in park. If anything, I think we can get supplies from here. There's got to be some weapons left, or ammo at least for your shotgun." "I don't think that's a good idea, Len." She touched his shoulder. "I don't think we have a choice, Grace." He grabbed his hammer and looked at the dried chunks of meat and bone on it. "I think you should get in the driver's seat in case something goes bad." "Len, at least take the shotgun," Grace pleaded. "Keep it. You only have 3 or 4 shells left. That's enough to keep you until the Jeep gets you to where you're safe." "Daddy, no!" Lee begged. "Please, Daddy." "I'm sorry, honey, but I need to get us supplies. I don't know how long we're going to be on our own." "No!" Catherine grabbed his arm in a death grip. "Catherine!" He pried her hands off and gently laid her back into her seat. "Grandma will keep you safe until I get back, okay?" "But, Dad..." "No, I'm sorry. I have to do this." As he got out, he looked at Grace. "Any sign of trouble, get out of here. Keep the radio on to listen for safe zones. Give me 15 minutes. If I'm not out by then, leave. You know I can't leave you here unless I'm certain that you're gone. Just keep this kid safe." Hammer in hand, Len began to check bodies in the parking lot, especially law enforcement personnel and military. Most of the bodies had been picked clean, either by looters or the infected. He breathed a sigh of relief, not seeing any sign of his wife amongst the corpses. He went into the armory, hammer cocked back and ready to strike. It was lit up inside the gymnasium, but the carnage mirrored the carnage outside. Bodies ripped apart or blown apart littered the gym floor. But there were weapons. He found a 9mm with a half-full magazine, and an extra magazine that was full. He found another civilian body that was carrying a 12-gauge shotgun, along with a belt full of shells. There was a kitchen attached to the gymnasium. He grabbed a black garbage bag and loaded it with a giant can of green beans, a few cans of mixed fruit, and ramen noodles. He was making his way to the offices when he heard the horn blast 3 times. He heaved the bag over his shoulder and ran out the same door he walked in. The Jeep was covered with infected. He dropped his bag and aimed the 9mm at the group of infected that were near the side doors, and he shot them in the head. They fell, and he shot at 2 that were on the hood of the Jeep. More were coming at his vehicle from the field behind the armory. "Hey!" He waved his arms in the air. "Come on, you bastards!" The crowd shifted and looked in his direction. "That's right, come on!" They began to make their way towards him, with only a few stragglers hanging onto the Jeep. He waved the Jeep away. Grace shook her head and instead gunned the Jeep in his direction, ricocheting bodies of the infected off the hood. "No, goddammit, Grace," he said to himself as he began backing his way into the building again. She slammed the Jeep into a large group of them, and the hood caved in and pushed the radiator into the engine block, and then stalled. Grace's face bounced off the steering wheel just when the airbags went off. Len's eyes were wide, seeing the windshield was spiderwebbed with cracks from the impact. Those things began to climb on the hood of the Jeep and began pounding at the window. He started firing shots at those in front of him until his magazine emptied. He loaded the next one and blasted the ones on the hood. After they cleared, he saw that they had managed to pull the windshield clear. To his horror, he could hear his girl screaming from the back of the Jeep. Grace was unconscious. He shouted at the things, but only a few took interest in him. Most of them were crowding the Jeep, clawing through the front to get at Grace. He used his hammer to take out the ones at the Jeep. "Unlock the doors!" he shouted to his kids, and then to Grace. "Grace! Grace, wake up! I need you!" She moaned and then slowly raised her head, scanning the scene before her. Then her eyes snapped open. "Shit!" she muttered. "Grace, get to the back of the Jeep. I'm going to clear us a path, and then I'll let you guys out from the hatch." He emptied the magazine on those infected around the rest of the Jeep, and the ones that were getting closer. He loaded the 12 gauge he had strapped around his shoulder and then popped the hatch of the Jeep. His girls were curled into frightened balls and crying. "Girls," Len shouted, looking from the parking lot to them. To the east of the armory was a reconstructed pioneer village that the kids had taken field trips to. "Listen, Grandma and I need you guys. We need you to run with us. We're going to run to Heritage Square and try to hide out there, okay?" They both just nodded, not really wanting to leave the Jeep. "Okay, come on. We need to go now." Len," Grace said. He looked up, and there were two infected trying to get into the Jeep from the blown-out window. "Let's go!" He grabbed his kids, and they all began running towards Heritage Square. They approached Heritage Square cautiously. There were a few infected roaming the grounds. There was an old chapel, an old schoolhouse, a farmhouse, 2 barns, a large metal storage shed, a train depot, and an old passenger train car where they were hiding. He looked at Grace. She had a cut on her forehead, and a bruise was beginning to form on the bridge of her nose. "What do you think?" he asked her. She scanned the grounds. "Well, the chapel's been broken into. I'm pretty sure there may be some of those things inside there. The schoolhouse still looks locked up tight, and so does that pioneer farmhouse. Plus, they have wire on the windows to keep out vandals." The train depot had been breached too. The doors were knocked in and the windows were smashed out. Not as protected as the house and the schoolhouse. "Okay, we'll go for the schoolhouse first since it's closest," Len decided. "Stay with the girls and I'll check it out. I'll signal you when it's safe." Grace cocked her shotgun and nodded at him. He ran as fast as he could, 25 yards from where they were. An old well hid him from the 3 roaming infected between him and the schoolhouse. He gripped his hammer and ran at them, splitting the first one's skull open, knocking another one to the ground, and then taking out the jawbone of the third. When he got to the schoolhouse door, he saw the padlock had already been smashed off. He tried the door and it wouldn't budge. He put the claw of the hammer into the side of the door and tried to pry the hole, when a hole was blown out of the wall, just missing his face. "Leave us be!" shouted a voice from inside. "Please, let us in. There's 4 of us. Two are children," Len pleaded. "If you don't leave, you'll be forcing my hand to shoot you dead. Now get out of here." "We have food. Please." Len heard a gun clicking, and he ran over to the farmhouse. There were 2 roaming by the front door. He smashed in the head of one of them with the butt of a shotgun, and used the claw of the hammer to take out the other. The padlock was secure on the front door of the house. Hope sparkled in his eyes as he knocked the lock off with the hammer. He went inside the house, each room roped off like a display at a museum. The house smelled of dust and mothballs. There was a slight crack in the back window, but it held together with the wire. He slowly walked up the stairs and almost let out a scream as he saw two figures in one of the bedrooms. But they were only mannequins dressed in pioneer clothes. He sighed with relief and then headed back downstairs. He waved his arms as he came out the front door. He saw his mother-in-law begin to step out from behind the train car when he noticed that the horde from the armory had finally made its way to Heritage Square, and it was right behind them. "Grace!" he screamed. "Look out!" She turned and they were almost on top of her. She pulled the trigger of her 12 gauge and ripped the chest out of one of them that was within arm's length of her. She yelled at the girls to run while Len was running towards them. Grace knocked a few off of her and then scooped up the food supplies and began running with her grandkids. "Leave the bag, Grace!" Len shouted. They're gaining on you!" One of them snagged the back of her blouse with his decaying hand, and she swung the bag around and knocked him over. "Grandma!" Lee screamed out as she stopped and turned to see where Grace was. "Lee! Len! Lee!" Len shouted behind her. "Come on! It's Grandma, Dad!" Grace was being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. He pushed the kids towards the house and then ran to Grace's aid. He plugged two of them with buckshot and shredded the legs off another. Grace was trying to drag herself and the bag of food towards Len. "Jesus, Grace," he said, bending down to pick her up. "Leave me, Len," she said distantly. "I've been bit. Just take the bag. Grace, no. Damn it. Len, don't leave the girls alone. Take the damn sack and run. I can't leave you. I'm gonna change. You know I'm going to. I can already feel it coursing through me. Shoot me and then leave me. Please. Grace, do you want me to go after the kids after I'm infected? Just shoot me, damn it, and do it now." Len pointed both barrels at his mother-in-law. I can't do it, Grace." Grace struggled with a knife she had in her belt. "Grace, no, please don't." But she had put the blade straight into her neck. She made choking noises, and then she lay still as her own blood pooled around her head. "Grandma!" Lee screamed out. Len grabbed the sack and collected his girls and ran into the restored pioneer farmhouse. All right. That is the end of Chapter 5. Next week in Chapter 6, we're going to catch up with Chris and her new friend Brent as they go on a rescue mission to rescue our good pal Hal Iverson. Yeah, so that should be a lot of fun. It is actually. But yeah, sadly, let's have a moment of silence for the loss of Grace Spellman. Okay, that was good. That was long enough. All right, guys. Again, appreciate you coming out. Appreciate you tuning in and all that stuff. And I hope to see you next week for Tunes for Tuesday. Have not decided who we're doing yet. But also, we're going to be doing this, a Apocalypse Humpday. Also, I plan on doing another What's Buzzing at the Hive. I want to do it a little more formal because not only do I want to talk about what's going on here, I also want to have some guests. And I have some. Hey, you too, Kevin. Thanks for stopping up. I want to have some guests, some other creatives that are out there, some other people that have published their books, and maybe just do a little talking back and forth about writing, our writing projects, and what we got going on. So, yeah, there's all kinds of ideas going through my head. And yes, I'm still thinking about the whole getting my books into prisons and jail libraries. So, just need to figure out how I can set that up. Anyhow, that is Zombie Apocalypse Humpday for this week. And it's also the last one of the month. So we'll be going into February, which is a leap year February. All right. Sure doesn't mean anything. But have a good night, guys. Love you. Peace.